Hello and welcome to Southeastern 16 presented by FanDuel. Chris Lee joined by Chase Robinson, Jay Greeson will be popping in shortly. We're here to talk the transfer portal, players that we think are really good fits at their stops in the SEC. We're going to hit several teams that have done well in the portal, some teams that have fit special needs, and some teams that maybe struggled a little bit. We'll talk about the national championship game briefly at the end. That is Indiana tonight facing Miami in Miami. Welcome, Chase Robinson. Jay Greeson is joining us. I'll give him a second to get settled. While we're doing that, what are the latest odds on FanDuel on Indiana and Miami tonight?
Indiana minus 7.5. There with an over-under of 47.5, according to our friends over at FanDuel. So it's stayed around there at that minus 7.5.
I was going to say, I think that's exactly what it was when the line came out the day after the game. It might have come out before then, but the first time I checked it, I guess is the point. All right. Jay Greeson is here. Let's pop him in. Good morning, Jay Greeson.
Well, close to afternoon here in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
That's true. Good hair day, I see.
I just look better when I shave, and I don't try to be Chase.
Well, none of us can be Chase. But anyway, hey, let's get started on the portal. You wrote up some good stuff for us. We're going to follow that as our show today. Let's start with best fits. We've got three guys we'll discuss: Byrum Brown at Auburn, Cam Coleman at Texas, Jacarrius Peak at South Carolina, and I think I would even throw Austin Simmons at Missouri in there as a fourth guy, maybe more of a wild card guy that you're projecting is a good fit. But let's start with Byrum Brown at Auburn. We've gone over that a little bit before, but now that the dust has settled and he's a Tiger, because, there have been commitments and decommitments from people different places. You just never know till it's set. What are we expecting from Byrum Brown at Auburn? Start with you, Jay. Why is he a great fit?
Well, a multitude of reasons, not all of them good. It was a desperation fit. The mass exodus from the Auburn quarterback room was his biggest storyline in the early part of the portal. When you've got three guys in that room, thanks again, Hugh Freeze, jackass, that one's going to be the starter at UNLV, one's going to compete for the job at Ole Miss, and the other's going to be the starter at FSU, and you couldn't even qualify for a bowl game with that type of quarterback talent. And the only problem with your football team was the quarterback play. So, look, there was no coach who, even more than Josh Heupel, who whiffed in the portal at quarterback, but there was no coach, new or experienced, especially now that it looks like Mario Cristobal is going to get the kid from Duke.
Yeah.
With the Miami extended portal time, and Darian Mensah is entered the portal over the weekend, much to the chagrin of the Duke Blue Devils, who thought they had an agreement in place.
Ugh.
Alex Golish had to get Byrum Brown. And this was, yes, there were so many guys who needed to address so many holes and fill so many different openings and opportunities. So, but there was only one, and Alex Golish had to get him, had to. And look, the layers of this go beyond just filling the vacuum at QB1. Now this entire South Florida offensive staff, they don't have to spend time teaching their offense to the quarterback.
Yeah. And
the offense can help teach the quarterback can now help teach the offense to everybody else who's learning it.
Yeah, Chase. I mean, Auburn, I feel like its best teams the last couple of decades have been with mobile quarterbacks. I mean, I guess if you go back maybe to the very far edge of the 20, that might not be the case. But, certainly we remember, what Auburn did when it won a national title with Cam Newton and had Nick Marshall after that. Byrum Brown, big guy, good fit, ran for over 1,000 yards. As Jay pointed out, knows the offense. I think the question is, do they have the supporting cast in Florida? But it feels like they got the right guy given where that coaching staff came from.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And anytime there's continuity, I mean, that's what you want, continuity in the offense. So yeah, the fact that Byrum Brown is familiar is going to play dividends. I think that he knows the offense, he's familiar with it, can kind of help lead in that way. But yeah, the fact you're looking at his game, the fact that he's mobile, he can I think cause some problems for some teams, and he'll have a lot of familiarity around him with some of these other players. So yeah, I think the fit, as Jay pointed out, it had to be done for Alex Golish, but I think that it's gonna play dividends in the long run.
By the way, welcome new member Larry Jones. Is that Chipper Jones, Jay? We got Chipper Jones in the chat here. New member in the.
If it is, then I will say this. Got a quick side story. Chipper Jones came to speak to at our Best of Preps banquet that I hosted, and that guy was unbelievably approachable. And honestly, we do a Q&A in front of like 5,000 people here in Chattanooga. And the first thing out of his mouth when I asked him a question was, I don't know if many of y'all know this or not, but I was not always the best husband. So I had to be a good hitter.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about embracing the elephant in the room right out of the gate.
No kidding. No kidding. We'll see if Andrew Jones joins him in the Hall of Fame this week, by the way, is a tangent here. But back to football. By the way, we love your memberships, your super chats. If you drop a super chat, not only do we appreciate those, we guarantee we'll read them. We'll love to take your questions, your comments, all those things. Audience interaction here and participation, always appreciated, as Sam Smith knows. All right, next one. I'm going to give you first dibs on this. Cam Coleman, would have been great at Auburn with Byrum Brown, but now going to Texas, which is really reloaded in the portal. Chase, Arch Manning felt like he really hit his stride second half of the season. That bowl game performance was spectacular. And now he's got a receiver probably more talented than any of the ones he's thrown to in Austin. And boy, he's thrown to some talented ones, but I don't know that he's had one like Cam Coleman.
Yeah, and I mean, Texas had to cash in this portal round based off the results from last season, starting out as high as they did preseason and ending the way they did. I mean, they had to go out and spend some money and put a roster together that can get them back to that top level, not only SEC, but in the nation. And adding someone like Cam Coleman is doing just that. I mean, he is a dynamic receiver, he wasn't utilized, and he's going to Texas where he will be utilized. And I think in those moments where we saw some incredible Cam Coleman catches, and look, I know we saw some drops here and there as well, but we saw his ability when he's utilized correctly, what he's able to do. And Sark can capitalize on that, on his ability. When you've got Arch Manning, if he can play the way he did, like he did in the bowl game, you've got Cam Coleman, some other guys around him. I think adding Cam Coleman to that roster is going to put Texas in a great position.
Well, all right, look, you got 6'3", 6'4" Coleman on one side. You got 6'2", 6'3" Ryan Wingo on another. I almost added in there that Cam Coleman is a 6'4", first-round future NFL wide receiver who was a 5-star and arguably as good a player as has been on the field every time he's put on cleats. So he was going to fit everywhere. I mean, but you add the coming back of Arch Manning to Hollywood Smothers, Raleek Brown, who is a sneaky great addition, the running back from Arizona State that Texas picked up, had 9 games where he had 20-plus yard plays from scrimmage. And you can spread out and go vertical with oversized wide receivers, and you've now made the defense not only defend you vertically but also horizontally. And because as you saw, Chris, when Cam Coleman's hard to tackle if you actually decide to use his ass. So Sarkisian now has a lot of weapons at his disposal. The thing I really like about Texas's class is not so much where it's rated. Look, the 24/7 rankings and those are more quantity than quality classes because totality matters. I mean, look, Oklahoma State's up there, and they took like 30 North Texas players. I like what it does to the immediate impact of your roster. And so what Texas has done is create a perfect blend of retaining the core guys. They would have liked to have kept some of those defensive guys without doubt, but they knew they had to address some offensive issues. And it's now been taking on an NFL salary cap type of prism that you've got to allocate where you're going to go. And I couldn't help but think, did Arch Manning, we know, look, if your last name's Manning, you're not really worried about the Kemba Walker pull quote back in the day that he'd go to bed hungry because the UConn kitchen was closed and he couldn't go get a snack. Manning's not worried about whether he's going to be able to order a pizza at 11 o'clock, right? I mean, they got a little – so with his NIL, is this possibly the first college version of a team-friendly contract? And he looked up and said, go get me some dudes because I want a bleeping Heisman.
Yeah, I think my question is like how they net out, because like they added some big time players. Hollywood Smothers you mentioned, but they also lost some too. I mean, he lost. Let me make sure I've got this right. They lost DeAndre Moore to Colorado, Parker Livingstone, who he had a lot of rapport with early at Oklahoma, and they lost some other receivers. They're kind of deeper reserves. Of course, they lost at running back Baxter to Kentucky, Trey Wisner to Florida State, and of course they landed Smothers, as you said. I'm just curious, Jay, how this all nets out, because they do lose some other guys. They lost, I think, injuries. The tight end maybe is in the draft. I guess he's out of eligibility. I have to fact check that. I mean, they landed some good guys, but like when all the dust settles with who they lose, how good is their roster?
Better. Offensively, It's better. Offensively, It's better. Defensively, it was going to be impossible to be better defensively when you lose that many dudes to the NFL.
Yeah.
But
like first round type dudes.
It's noticeably better. And I can't help but wonder if Texas felt a little buyer's remorse about their running back room, because they didn't really fight to keep any three of those dudes in Wisner, Baxter, and Curley, or whatever the other one of the Stooges was. And then they went and got two guys that are coming in hungry. And I think if you did the modern day math on, you can't have too much talent. And I've always agreed with the Spurrier assessment that if you think you've got two quarterbacks, you have none. Well, I think if you think you have three running backs, you have none. It's great to have two running backs. But if you're trying to give equal carry and equal NIL to three dudes, this isn't CC's, man. Everybody can't go get the pizza they want. So the conversation and focusing on the two dudes you want to feature makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I think the next one, we were going to talk about South Carolina and the offensive lineman that landed, Jay. You think that's a huge pickup for them?
The Pete kid from NC State comes in with 33 career starts. And look, I bet Lenora Sellers walked into Beamer's office and said, I'll write a check for this bleeper. All right. How much out of my own account? Because I'm tired of getting sacked 5 times a game. My future NFL earnings took a dent this year because I was running for my life. Go find me a left tackle. And Jacarrius Peak is that. So there are a couple of big time, look, man, we're always going to talk about the quarterbacks, aren't we? We always do. I mean, they get too much credit when they win. They too much blame when they lose. And they're the eye popper, and they're the place everybody starts because that's where you're starved for an overhaul and where you can inject the most hope in programs that are not feeling like they're at their level. But it is the guys on the trenches. I mean, look, man, Indiana's playing for it all tonight. And the Brockenmeyer kid from Texas is a sneaky big part of what their offensive overhaul was at center. I mean, you look at what Keontae Scott has done for Miami once he's been healthy, the Auburn safety transfer from a year ago. These guys, I wrote this morning, Chris, and I shared it with you. Programs are built on signing day. Championship teams are formed through the portal and completed through the portal. Now, if you can find it's one of the reasons I'm high on Texas's Hall, because I think they are doing a pretty good job of finding the intersection as best we can without a roadmap of what the future of building your roster is going to look like. But I love this for South Carolina. I mean, I think, look, they whiffed on the running back from Utah State who missed a lot of the preseason, the Faison kid, because of eligibility issues. So they had no running game. And Lenora Sellers went from projected potential round one, pick one, to coming back to school. And South Carolina, maybe as much as anybody this side of Georgia, did the best job in the portal of retaining their superstars. So I know they may not reflect in the portal rankings as having as good a class as a lot of these other league teams, which have the top 3 and 247's rankings and like 6 of the top 12. But South Carolina's retention doesn't factor into those rankings, but it does add to your roster.
Yeah, Chase. I mean, they did retain some good players. We talked about Sellers. We talked about what they did on the defensive end, but they lost a lot on offense too. No, they added some good players. It's like, where does the dust settle on all this when we figure that out? Like, I'll just give you an example. Receiver, they lost Vandrevius Jacobs to Miami. They also got Nitro Tuggle, last to Purdue, formerly of Georgia. Jaden Gibson, who's been at Oklahoma, and a talented player. So they got that. We talked about Peak, but man, you look at the line, they lost Case and Henry, who I think had started for them some. Tree Balabady, I think is how you pronounce it. He was a starter for them. He's at Nebraska. Jatavius Shivers has been a big player for them on the offensive line. I think he's been a starter. Trevon Ball, same thing. Like, so I'm looking down, and they added an impact offensive line, but they also lost a lot of guys who played a lot. Now, on the other hand, that's the whole thing. Like, what was Carolina's struggle all year? The offensive line was awful. So it's like, are you better off or you worse? You know, do you bring those guys back next year and see them get better? Well, they just hit the portal. So they're going to be an interesting one to try to size up.
Yeah, they are. But I think with this team, like, yes, you lose a number of guys, but for South Carolina, I feel like with the guys they retained, they can approach it more of the quality of player over the quantity of guys they bring in the portal.
Yeah.
And adding a guy like Peak is, I mean, they have to work on that offensive line. It has got to get better this year. Lenora Sellers spent all season running for his life around the ground, and they can't have that this year. So adding him was huge, but to me, South Carolina was in a position where they just got to get quality guys over the number of guys they bring in.
To that point, especially on coaches who are not new in the transition, we're pretty quickly going to get to a place that we've got to look at the guys in the portal. If they didn't work super hard to retain them, I think about Tennessee getting Arian Carter to come all the way back. Arian Carter declared for the draft, second team All-SEC linebacker who led the league in tackles per game. If he declared for the draft, entered the portal, and then this weekend said he's coming back to Knoxville, it's clear Tennessee put a premium on doing what they could to get this guy back. And there are a lot of guys that are just going to say, you know what, I'm out. Cam Coleman comes to mind. But some of these guys, like what I said about the Texas running backs, if those guys are not fighting super hard to retain those guys, okay. I mean, don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. I mean, maybe they felt like they overpaid on the front end. I mean, there's now a very real fiscal with an F, responsibility on, do you think that money is better spent somewhere else? Because if I'm a South Carolina fan looking up right now, and you're telling me that we lost a couple of starting offensive linemen from what was the worst offensive line probably in the conference, I'm not losing a whole lot of sleep over it.
Yeah. Well, and I meant to mention this on Texas, Jay. My understanding, and I can't completely confirm, but I've heard that when Texas's attitude is, all right, you hit the portal, we're out on you. So once they hit the portal, I don't think
that'll
Texas
last about as long as Dabo's refusal to get in the portal.
Right. Well, we'll see how it nets out. Again, I love the way they finished offensively. Hey, I want to talk. I think this next one could be the most fascinating one in the SEC, and it's Austin Simmons going to Missouri. And before we dive into that, I want to thank a couple of our lovely sponsors. And boy, these guys are great at what they do. First one is ROKFORM. You guys know, you've heard me talk about my phone case. ROKFORM makes the world's strongest magnetic phone case. Man, it is good. You drop your phone, nothing happens to it. Super strong protection, rock lock, secure mounting, the most durable and multifunctional phone case accessories. That includes the vent clip. I've got that for my car and the phone case. I just stick the vent clip on the vent, throw the phone up there, got it in front of me. I can look at maps or whatever as I'm driving. It is fantastic. They've also got golf accessories, durable and functional golf accessories designed for the course, built for the pros, used by all. Let nothing get in the way between you and your swing. Go to ROKFORM to take care of all your needs for golf accessories and, of course, cell phones. And again, I swear by the vent clip and the phone case that I've got from them. Also brought to you by Ann Collar, a new sponsor, performance menswear brand that makes polos, button-ups, quarter zips, pants, you name it. Stretchy, affordable. They make you look good. Code SE16 gets you 16% off their entire order. Look, stain resistance, comfort, wrinkle resistance, lightweight, all kinds of stuff that you like in shirt and prices. Like their prices, once you get the shirts, and I've got a bunch of them, and their pants, you won't believe the price that you paid because, man, these are quality. I think you could easily pay twice as much for the stuff at Ann Collar as you pay and be happy, but you don't. I've been wearing their stuff, wore their pants to church yesterday. It's just fantastic, and you're going to love it. I've been looking for menswear that I can wear that I like, that fits well. Didn't want to spend a lot of time shopping because I don't have any. I just ordered stuff, got it sent straight through the mail, and man, you love it. Jay Greeson's got a comment. I can just see him sitting on it. You're on mute. That might be a good thing. But anyway, Ann Collar.
You said you wore your Ann Collar gear, your Ann Collar pants to church yesterday, and I was just sitting here thinking I didn't wear pants to church yesterday, and they'd asked me to leave. So,
yeah, well, I hope you did online church.
Maybe.
Okay, I'm on to you, my man. All right, let's get us off pants. Let's talk about Austin Simmons and in Missouri. Jay, I think you think this could be one of the best fits anywhere. I think you're right, but I want to hear you unpack your reasoning.
Well, look, I put this in the category of, and who's going to be the biggest, and I don't even know if we can call Austin Simmons a surprise. Austin Simmons got Wally pipped. Who's to say he would or would not have been as good as Trinidad Chambliss until the injury? Yes, if you're picking nits right now, he had some interception issues early. But the kid is supremely talented, and we all loved his upside. The upside's still there. Now that he's healthy, and look, Missouri's questions now flip to replacing those dynamic and underrated defensive front seven dudes. And I'm not saying they lost a lot of them to the portal. A lot of them ran out of eligibility. But Simmons and Hardy together give you a duality that allow for a very similar setting to what Chambliss and Lacey did for Ole Miss. And I mean, at the bare minimum, I don't know if there's a bigger upgrade at the most important position this side of Auburn than Simmons over Prabula.
I agree. I mean, yeah, Chase, I want to let you put in here, but here's what I like. I mean, Simmons was a guy that I think, graduated high school a couple years early, may have already got his college degree. I'm not sure. Like this kid got way ahead in life, in the books. That tells me he's mature, waited his turn, was going to be the guy. Just a weird set of circumstances happened. But I'm with Jay. I think this is going to be an upgrade over Bo Prabula, who just really couldn't pass the ball well enough. I don't think Austin Simmons is Ole Miss's quarterback of the future coming into last year if he can't throw.
Yeah, I certainly agree with all that. And another factor of this, too, is I think that with Missouri landing Austin Simmons, it's already helped them get Louisville transfer C.J. Mays, wide receiver. Former Ole Miss wide receiver Caden Lee is in the portal. They've worked together. Missouri could be a potential landing spot for him. So bringing in Austin Simmons can also help you recruit some other guys in these skill positions that Missouri needs. I think it could really help them in that area as well.
All right, we're going to talk some teams. No big shock here. LSU and Lane Kiffin on top of the transfer portal rankings at 24/7. He was the portal king at Ole Miss, which we'll talk about momentarily. And apparently he's going to still be the portal king at LSU, Jay.
Look, that's a guy who answered the bell, because other than talking about playoff games, even more than bowl games, everybody who talks about college football for a living, whether it's on your computer screen, your television, your drive time radio like Chase does in Alabama, whether it's your barber, the other storyline since Thanksgiving has been Lane Kiffin. And it was a splash hire. It was a tsunami exit. And he needed to have a splash portal. And he delivered in absolute spades. Because, look, the way I phrased it this morning in my column at timesfreepress.com is the biggest home run landing in the portal that could potentially be a foul ball is Sam Leavitt, the uber talented number 1 overall prospect, quarterback from Arizona State, who goes to Red Stick to be Lane Kiffin's next quarterback prodigy, but he's battling a very significant foot injury. Well, in a system that allows it, in a system that demands it, and in a situation of need, what does Lane Kiffin do? He goes and gets a 5-star dude from USC to be his ready-made backup if Sam Leavitt's not ready. The Longstreet kid from USC is a perfect fit for Kiffin. And look, he also, and I think this is in some ways important, look how many former SEC guys Kiffin went and landed. Because in some ways, if you can, and I think this is one of the really sneaky things, Georgia's class is undervalued because they had so few holes to fill. But their 2 highest ranked portal additions at Georgia are a 4-star edge rusher from Auburn and a 4-star wide receiver from Georgia Tech. Who do they play every year? So if you can go get dudes from guys you know you're going to play and add them to your dudes, it's doubly impactful. Look at what Lane Kiffin killed it. And Lane Kiffin's approach is perfect for the modern system. And if you need any evidence, look at who the top two teams are in the 247 portal. The team Lane Kiffin currently coaches and the team Lane Kiffin educated on how to address the portal. LSU and Ole Miss. 1-2 in the rankings. I don't think even his arrogant ass has to say anything other than just check the numbers.
Yeah. Chase, it's dizzying what they added and lost. Like, I think Jay said something big. Like, you look down these portal additions, you're having to look a lot of guys up. LSU's, you're like, yep, know that guy, know that guy, know that guy. Like, they interchanged 6 quarterbacks alone. I think got rid of 3. I think that the 3 they brought in were the better than the 3 they got. They did work everywhere, including, I think, picking up TJ Daugherty from Ole Miss late.
Yeah, and I didn't realize as I'm looking, and as Jay pointed that out, and I'm looking here on 24/7, just where it has what team they came from to LSU, the amount of SEC guys. That's incredible. What he's done there and bringing guys from in the conference to LSU. But yeah, there's no doubt that he has figured this out. He's figured out the pitch of how to get them there. And look, with this roster, and I know we've said it before, but with this roster that he's put together, like, this is a roster that can win a championship at LSU. And he knows that's paramount there. And boy, he's doing what it's going to take to do that.
You just look down the positions. I mentioned quarterback. By the way, they lost Michael Van Buren, the former Mississippi State quarterback who was starting at State 2 years ago at the end of the season, came to LSU to be a backup. He's headed to South Florida. Running back, they lost a few, including Caleb Jackson, but brought in, a bunch of them. Receiver Eugene Wilson III, one of the most talented guys that anybody added at any position in the SEC. Nick Anderson. I'm sorry, he's departing LSU to go to Oklahoma. So that's one they lost. Again, they did lose some good players too, but I think the consensus here is they did better than what they lost. They lost Curious Kern to Ole Miss, but picked up a bunch of linemen, lost Tyree Adams to A&M. I think the big thing to me, though, what they did with Daugherty and maybe Jordan Ross, that's one that high upside 5-star guy out of high school. Never really realized his potential at Tennessee, but I think he was a top 10 prospect in the class. Malik Blockton, one of Jay's favorites from Auburn.
Without question.
Yeah. The Daugherty ad was a big one. I think didn't he go into the portal on Friday? I think that was, there was some noise around LSU and Ole Miss. I think that was a big story there. There's so many names here, like you don't even know where to start. I guess we did quarterback's the starting place, but defensively they did some interesting stuff too.
Well, they did, and they needed to. And my boy Salty put in there, and this is important. I can imagine the pitch from Lane Kiffin to Caden Durham, who flirted with the portal but came back to LSU, took exactly this one sentence. Look what I did with Keywan Lacey. And look, the biggest knock for the last 2 years has been Brian Kelly's refusal to establish a running game. And it is his pitch now, it not only works, but it's the modern version of what Saban's pitch was to high school recruits. And it makes all the sense in the world. Give me one great year, and I'll make you all SEC, all American, whatever else. We're going to pay you because that's how everything goes. But this pitch is spot on, and the proof is in the pudding. So LSU's locked and loaded. And if Leavitt is healthy, everybody better buckle up because you're going to have to score 40 to win them against LSU.
Well, Ole Miss, as it was said, did pretty well, ranked number 2 behind LSU. I guess your headliner there, Deuce Knight. By the way, they snuck Walker Howard back in there at some point. He played at Louisiana Lafayette last year. Got hurt early in the season.
Quote. Yeah. One more quick Lane quote. two programs that caught my eye on a subtle thing. I've done a little studying on the portal, boys. I'm gonna let you behind the curtain at the Greeson compound, aka Oz. Two of the sneaky monster additions are guys who can go get 6 and 7 figure quarterbacks in the portal with the knowledge that they're probably going to be a backup.
Yeah.
And Lane did it, and Dan Lanning did it at Oregon with getting the Raiola kid from Nebraska when Dante Moore says he's coming back. And in some ways, Alex Golesh did it. He got the kid from Oregon State who was a starter last year, knowing Byrum Brown is going to be a 1-year all chips in QB1 in Lee County. So the importance of being able to convince, look, you're not going to compete if you can't write these big checks. But if you can convince kids to come in and take backup roles, you can sell ice cubes to Eskimos.
Yeah, Jay, where do you start with Ole Miss? We hit quarterback. What else catches your eye here with their class?
Ole Miss is the two things through this portal conversation. The first one is a big picture. We're waiting on lawsuits in Knoxville and Oxford.
Yeah.
If Trinidad Chambliss and Joey Aguilar come back or get cleared to come back, then the offseason conversation changes, and both those teams are going to catapult to the top half of the league in terms of all the preseason conversation. But as far as Ole Miss specifically goes, I think this is it. It's been a great offseason in portal. It's been a great portal season, not necessarily a great offseason for Lane Kiffin. This has been arguably the best offseason for Pete Golding that any college football coach could ever dream. He moves into the top 10 all-time in playoff wins. He's 2-1 in the playoffs. He's 2-1 in his career. How many guys did he retain that we thought Kiffin was going to go after, including Lacey?
Yeah.
And you still go get Deuce Knight. So if Trinidad Chambliss doesn't get the waiver, you've got a guy who was a 5-star dude who showed the flashes, who has all the upside in the world to pick up the baton and not miss a beat. And there's no possible way. And the AD Carter, he's got to be busting his buttons every morning at breakfast because everything they did turned out properly.
Yeah.
Every controversial decision, no lane, beat feet. And Golding even starting it with, get out of my office, go watch this game at home. And I'm already giddy for the SEC opener between those two teams.
Yeah.
I mean, this is I feel if I was a hottie toddy, I would have been heartbroken with all the drama and so encouraged about what's moving forward.
Yeah. Chase, a lot of moving parts. I like a lot of what they did on defense too, by the way, Chase.
Yeah, no doubt. And look, Pete Golding's a defensive guy. He's a player's guy. I think he's very appealing to want to play for. I think he's proved that. And so, yeah, he was able to get some really nice pieces defensively. I like what he retained. Like, to me, that's the starting point with Pete Golding and the transfer portal is the guys he retained. And yes, they've been able to go out and get some great guys out of the portal, and that's awesome for them. But the fact that he was able to keep those guys just adds that even more. Like, I feel like that's just the starting point for when you talk about Ole Miss is how he was able to keep those guys in Oxford. And again, I think that shows just what kind of guy he is, what kind of coach he is, that, man, they want to play for him. And you saw those Ole Miss guys, they would have run through a wall for him last week in the last couple of weeks in the playoffs. So, yeah, they've picked up some nice pieces, but wow, what they were able to keep.
Yeah, I think, they added Jay Crawford, who was a starting corner at Auburn. They're going to need some experience. And a good one, very good one. Jonel Aguero, safety at Georgia, who played a ton there. Sharif Denson, very talented corner at Florida. That's just three of them. Really liked what they did there. It's hard to get a lot of good experienced corners. Those are big commodities, but I think that's a place where they really hit. All right, Jay, I had next up to talk about I think we're going to go Tennessee because, boy, was that one interesting. They did get Arian Carter back, but quarterback is boy, that is a situation, to say the least.
You can't overstate it. You can't overstate not only they get the backup from Colorado over the weekend, and who knows, it wasn't like Aguilar came in with a star-studded resume, but that was a different kettle of fish. That was the forget 11th hour departure of Nico Amaliava. That was like the 17th hour departure of Nico Amaliava. And Heupel makes the best of it. And here's what I'm going to say, because I am an unabashed Heupel supporter. I think he's really good at this, especially on the offensive side. Maybe they decided to say, you know what, our defense sucked. We fired Banks. We went and got Knowles. He brought a couple of difference-making defensive dudes with him from Penn State. They embraced that side of the ball at a level that I don't know if anybody else in the league added as much defensive talent as Tennessee did. Especially when you're talking about the Coleman kid, who is a top 5 or a top 10 projected draft pick as an edge rusher coming from Penn State to Knoxville. And maybe Heupel, look, we all know Heupel wanted Leavitt. He tried to get Prabula. There were other names on those lists, and they finished second, which, not to quote my man Ricky Bobby, second's your first loser. And but if Heupel's betting on himself in what at least around everything I hear in Chattanooga is a more important year than a lot of people may have expected, considering they were in the playoff 14 months ago.
Yeah, they did make some big additions in the portal. Of course, they lost a lot of guys too on that back seven, and of course, we talked about Ross on the defensive line. Kind of unrealized potential to this moment, but potential nonetheless. I think when they added it was Kayan Lee from Auburn, another corner who's played a lot. That was a good one. I think, to me, though, I think the offense is the big talking point. I guess George McIntyre is your quarterback at this point. Chase, if the lawsuit with Aguilar doesn't go through, Jake Merklinger, who was their backup, left. They lost Peyton Lewis, their third tailback. They lost some receivers, but nobody that was a big deal for them. They lost Lance Hurd, their tackle. I think, to me,
that's not a big deal either, though.
Yeah, well,
Lance Hurd was about to go to an alternate tackle spot.
Okay. He was their right tackle anyway, was he not? You mean saying he was going to be
he was their left tackle.
Okay.
But David
You're
Sharp,
right.
a true freshman from Carolina, is a budding first-round pick. He's going to move to left tackle. They like who they've got coming in at right tackle. That one is – look, and that's not any degradation to Lance Hurd as the player. I think he's going to help Kentucky. But that was somebody else will overpay. We've got to move our resources into other directions, especially because when they lost Lance Hurd, as Sam pointed out, they were still in the market potentially for Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati. Yeah. And at that point in time, they were willing to pay for a quarterback. And I'm sorry, I'm still battling this congestion stuff, so I started coughing. My finish to the earlier thought was Heupel looking through this prism of I'm going to go get dudes for every other position because I believe in my ability to create a quarterback. If you give me clay, I'm going to give you a sculpture.
By the way, want to talk about Kentucky when we get done talking with teams. We're going to finish Tennessee because, Chase, I want to get your thoughts on them. And we're going to talk Georgia, and who else do we have down? Oh, Alabama, because that one's really interesting, I think. But your thoughts on Tennessee, because like you don't have a proven quarterback at the moment. You always trust Josh Heupel for offense. You've always been able to so far. And the defense was where you kind of reset it. Tim Banks had been so good till this last year that they seem to pin a lot of the issues on Banks. Reset with Jim Knowles, who's really good. I think the question always, can you get in year one what you want? The thought has always been it's a year two thing with him. What do you make of what Tennessee did on the whole, Chase?
Well, I mean, I really liked the Jim Knowles hire. And then the guys he's been able to bring in, I mean, I think it enhances the team so much. And I agree with everything Jay said about Heupel and what he can do offensively and having the trust there in what he can do. But, yeah, the fact that Jim Knowles and who they were able to bring in defensively, and it's a number of guys, and they may not be big flashy names, some folks, but they're good football players that Knowles definitely can work with. And so, yeah, on the whole, I like what Tennessee has done because of some of these pickups defensively. And we know that that has got to be better. That defense has got to be better for Tennessee this year.
Jay, you were high on Georgia. I think Georgia's a team that's got a lot of guys returning. Could have seen that coming before the year. As many freshmen and sophomores as Georgia had on its too deep. I know you were very big on what Georgia did, not necessarily, making splashes with names to rival LSU and Ole Miss, but in terms of what they kept and where they added, I know you're very high on them.
Well, look, I've been high on Georgia for a hot minute, and it's not just because I've got a Bulldog at home that looks just like Uga or that I married a Georgia graduate. Georgia did not have the glaring openings or holes or needs to address like everybody else did. We talked frequently, Chris, Chase, through the maturation of this season on how much Georgia's young kids grew up. Those young kids are coming back, and they're going to be better. But what Georgia did do, and did do unbelievably effectively, they added Amaris Williams from Auburn, who, man, every time I talk about a kid who leaves Auburn, and yes, you can see my pullover, it just makes me madder and madder at Hugh Freeze. I swear to goodness, I'm going Cobra Kai on Hugh Freeze if I ever meet him. I'm sweeping the knee. I'm sweeping the damn knee. Do you have a problem with that, Mr. Lawrence? No, Sensei. All right, fine. You add Amaris Williams because I don't know if you could have enough DBs, and I don't know if you could have enough pass rushers. And Amaris Williams is a dude. And they added the Canion kid from Georgia Tech, who is a high upside kid at a position of need when you missed on a Noah Thomas. And he brings it. Maybe not as explosive as Jacarrius Branch, but he brings a similar skill set in bubble screens and opportunities that Mike Bobo embraces. They didn't need a quarterback. And I'll tell you another one. The Dowdle kid from Kentucky is a bruiser at running back. And he is hard to tackle. And look, Georgia was adding. It's like the Kansas City Chiefs when and I know Georgia didn't win it this year, but it's like a star-studded NFL team going into free agency picking and choosing. That's not going to elevate them up the rankings of 247, but I'm going to put this out there tomorrow in my column. Which SEC teams gained the most in the portal, trying to weigh what you lost and what you gained? Like Auburn gained a ton, but they lost more than that. So if I'm talking about a true, is your roster better assessment, Georgia skyrockets because they only had 9 guys, but they didn't lose a ton.
I think the place where they lost, Chase, was secondary. Daniel Harris and Jonel Aguero were both starters in the SEC championship game. I think Aguero started a dozen games for them this year. I mean, other than that, you look across the roster, they didn't lose a lot of impact guys. I think Roderick Robinson was a guy at one point that I think was thought to be in their stable of future running backs, but Frazier was so good. I like Jay's point that adding Dowdell is a bruiser. That really complements the way he runs. It'll be interesting to see what they do because I think they're going to have back as many good players as anybody, is my guess, without looking at everybody's roster. I just can't imagine who's going to have more returning experience than Georgia's got. And that's the only place it feels like that they bled a little bit was the secondary.
Yeah. And look, I think for so long we were so used to Georgia just, taking their defense and them all going to the NFL draft, and they had to replace so many. But now, because of so many young guys out on the field, like we're not seeing that this year, them sending a bunch of guys to the NFL. So yeah, they were able to keep a lot and then add a lot. So I think that's something with Georgia's. We're not used to seeing them retain this many guys. And man, they've kept some good ones.
Chase, I'm going to start with Alabama with you. I'm getting concerned given on what they lost and what they've added. Is that the right way to look at this at the moment?
I mean, I think there definitely is a level of concern, I guess. They lost, get the number up. They lost 21 guys to the portal. They've gotten 15, and they've gotten some good ones out of the portal. But I think just in talking to people and really looking at the roster and the guys who have left, I forget which team we were talking about earlier, that, the offensive line was not good for Alabama this year. We thought it would be. And
South
so
Carolina, Chase, was a team.
Yes. So Alabama fans looking at the guys who have left, and you see several offensive line starters who have left, and I'm sure the Alabama coaching staff didn't work too hard to try to keep those guys. So I think in some positions, while there was a lot of guys who hit the portal, I think in some spots it was not necessarily a bad thing. Now, the reverse of that, you've got to bring some guys in to replace those guys now. And I think they've brought in some offensive linemen I think will help. So it's not all bad, but I think Alabama is, again, in the position where they're having to learn that they're not just going to get all the 5 stars anymore. There's not that Nick Saban effect where you're just getting everybody in the world to come play and sit the bench, and be the 3rd string just because you're playing for Nick Saban and winning a championship. They've got to go. They've got to outwork every team in college football now to get the best players.
Yeah. Chase, I think my concern for them is defense, especially on the line. They lost James Smith. They lost Keon Keeley. They lost Quay Rassaw, Kelby Collins. Like, those are all guys that played a lot of snaps for them. Typically Alabama's had the depth to just reload there, but right. As you said, it's not Nick Saban's 2020 Alabama anymore. I think that's where, even at quarterback, where we all know what happened with Ty Simpson. He's going to the draft, turned down a ton of money elsewhere. You had some talents behind them that had been waiting that could pan out. I'm curious defensively because they were pretty good. How equipped are they to absorb some of those losses?
I think, I don't know. I don't think they have the guys that they retained aren't at the level of what we saw on the field this year. So, unless there's going to have to be drastic improvement, I'll say that. And maybe they look at bringing a couple of guys who are left in the portal, bringing them in on that side of the ball. But That was a group that got a lot better all through the year, the defense of Alabama. And there's going to have to be massive improvements, I think, from the guys they retained, and maybe bringing in a couple of more to get back to that level.
Jay, your take on Alabama, because that's just been a weird offseason.
I think it's important to bring up Nick Brooks from Texas, because he's like Terrence Mount Cody big. And, I mean, a guy who's just going to plug the middle. And, I mean, I think, look, this feels like whether it's – and we don't know. We're not in the coaches' rooms where they're there letting highly regarded guys go and then trying to lure highly regarded guys to replace them. I don't know. I mean, and boy, oh boy, it's the devil you know and the devil you don't, I guess. But there are a lot of questions here because they obviously feel that Austin Mack's the guy because they didn't make a quarterback splash. And I know there are a lot of defensive questions on until Indiana ran through them like crystal through a drunk man's gut at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night. There were the defense was a strength, but the strengths on the offensive side, Chase touched on the offensive line, and it was maybe the most underachieving group in the SEC considering where we thought they were in August. And I don't know how many dudes they added to replace that. And then they lose. Look, Auburn lost its best wide receiver. Auburn lost its best 4 wide receivers. At least Alabama retained Ryan Williams. But losing Isiah Horton to Texas A&M.
Yeah, that was another one.
He was their best player the back month and a half of the season. That kid with Marcel Reed, you want to talk about, we started this show with really good fits. That was so close to being on my list. Yeah. Isiah Horton is going to be a bona fide dude in College Station.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw a curveball at you a little bit. I did mention earlier we didn't talk Kentucky. Kentucky also a team that made wholesale changes. We've talked about them a little bit. So I want to hit there. Who wants to start?
I'll start. Kentucky crushed the offseason, and here is their biggest addition. Will Stein's going to be great at this. Will Stein is going to be an absolute home run. He's Kiffin-esque in this portal scenario because he's developed a track record of saying, here, hey, look, what have I done? Not what am I telling you. What have I done? Bo Nix, Dylan Gabriel, Dante Moore. I needed 4 months to turn them into Heisman contenders. What have I done? Look, when we do our offseason rankings, Kenny Minchie's going to be in my top 5 quarterbacks primarily because of Will Stein. And the other pieces, look, Kentucky had a lot of holes. That team was flawed. So I don't know what your ceiling is in year 1, but I do know that the ceiling moving forward under Will Stein is infinitely higher than the most decorated, winningest coach you've ever had at your university. And that look, just what I said about Pete Golding, there are a lot of SEC teams that are wondering if they have the guy. If I'm a Kentucky fan, I believe we have the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chase, Kentucky made a lot of offensive additions here for sure.
Yeah, they did. And, Yeah, Will Stein, I'm a big fan of his, just watching him this offseason, how he's handled this. And yeah, he's developed a lot of players. I mean, if you're an offensive player, like, why not want to go play for Will Stein at Kentucky? Like, he's given you an opportunity to play at an SEC program. He's a great coach. I've really liked what he's done at multiple positions. I mean, he's brought in some good receivers, some guys who've been in SEC programs have transferred to Kentucky to play for Will Stein. I really like what he's doing. He's a young guy. He understands these guys. I think he's proven he's a great recruiter. He probably relates to him really well. Like, I think the guy, the level of talent he's brought in, man, hats off to him. He's done an outstanding job.
Yeah, I mean, you looked at him this year and you watched him play and just said, where are the playmakers? They had a couple of nice running backs in Dowdell and a couple of receivers who could make the occasional play. But you look at what they did. You talked about Minchie. I think Nick Anderson from LSU was a big-time player for them, big-time talent in this league. That gives them the receivers that maybe they had a couple of years ago, that kind of talent that they lost. They couldn't get them the ball. When they lost Dane Key and I can't remember, Barry and Brown, who both went elsewhere after last year. I think they get some of that playmaking back. I think one of the wild cards in the league could be CJ Baxter, because let's not forget this, guys. 2 years ago as a true freshman, or I guess it's been, 3 seasons ago now, Baxter rushes for 659 yards, catches 156 yards worth of passes, and going into 24 was really supposed to be a breakout star for Texas, the way that I remember it, at running back. Got hurt in preseason, didn't play a snap, came back last year and just was very pedestrian, 3.6 a carry. They had offensive line issues. They had running game issues. So I don't know how much of that was on CJ Baxter, how much of that was on other things. Maybe it's a case of first year back from injury. It just didn't work out well. I don't know. But I guess we're about to find out, because I think he's a guy that a couple of years ago, if you'd said the career trajectory goes one way, you would have thought it was going towards stardom, maybe superstardom. Didn't work out. We'll see if it works out for him at Kentucky. All right, guys, any last thoughts on the portal? Jay, I'll start with you. Any topics we didn't hit we need to cover? Then I'll go to you for yours, Chase, and then we'll talk some national title game just briefly tonight.
I got multiple thoughts on the portal. One, how many SEC coaches are looking at tonight's game wondering who they could pilfer at the 11th hour? Because these players now have till the end of the week and a portal window extension to possibly, some of our guys in the chat have talked about an Indiana offensive lineman who's from Austin. You have to wonder, with Kurt Cignetti going to get the quarterback from TCU, does that mean Fernando Mendoza's little brother, who is Indiana's backup, may portal? Does that mean look at some of the guys on a Miami defense? And big question for the group. For schools in our league who are desperate for a splash, could Malachi Toney get $3 million in the portal?
Oh, I think he could. But have you noticed the way Miami's spending money allegedly?
Well, they're gonna go get by all accounts, they're gonna go get the Duke quarterback.
Yeah.
But this is an unprecedented time. Now, I do want them to move the calendar back a hot minute, move all of the signing day stuff to December, move all of the free agent stuff until after the end of the college football playoff in its entirety. And look, Pooh, if the Duke quarterback costs $10 million, which you've got to hold out now, because I'll tell you another one. The 5-star tackle from Colorado who entered the portal at the 11th hour. That guy is going to be in high demand. And wouldn't surprise me if Indiana swoops in with their portal opening and makes this happen. And hey, the chats are right. The U is desperate for a quarterback. They have swung and missed as often as Tennessee. So you wait longer, you become more coveted, which then also means you become more lucrative. So we'll revisit this in sometime this week, and we'll do a power rankings not only on best classes, but also I want to give some thought to the best net gains of rosters. Like Auburn is ranked 12th on 247. Their roster is not better today than it was before the portal. That's only counting the incoming guys. So you got to weigh defections as much as you've got to weigh additions.
Yeah.
So we'll figure that out later this week, fellas, and we'll do that live and take your calls. But calls, posts, whatever the hell they're called. I grew up in radio too.
Oh, so you were breaking news here, Jay, on the show. But anyway. No, I've got some thoughts on that, but Chase, let me let you go first.
One team I like what they've done, and it's not just necessarily in the portal. Actually, you'll see them at the bottom of the portal rankings in the SEC, and that's Florida. But I really like what John Summerall retained and what he brought in out of the portal. I mean, bringing in Eric Singleton, Aaron Philo from Georgia Tech, the quarterback. I like those two pickups, but he retained some great guys as well. Jaden Ball, Dallas Wilson, those type guys. So I was impressed with what Florida was able to retain, but they got some good quality players. Not a lot, a couple good quality players though out of the portal.
Yeah, several thoughts here, and this is Spurns the first of them. Paxton says Texas desperately needs a left tackle. Yeah, it feels like that's a void you've had since your dude won the Outland and went to the NFL after last season. But I think everybody feels like they've got a hole somewhere. I don't think everybody's completely satisfied. I just think that's the day and age where you've got money in the portal, and it's not Alabama, in Georgia 5 years ago, where not only do you not have a hole, you've got a backup in case you suddenly have a hole with an injury. So I think that's number one. If you're totally satisfied with your all 22 and the guys that are backing them up, let me know, because I feel like that's a rarity in this age. The Mensa thing feels gross, the way it went down at the same time. Gosh, you kind of have to fight dirty to compete in the landscape, because when you aren't, people are doing it against you. I hate it. The fact you're seeing guys sign contracts, teams kind of count on that, and then guys hit the portal a couple of days later. It's just, I'm interested to see, like, legally what happens with some of the lawsuits and things. I don't know if they've been withdrawn, but you saw what happened at Washington when their quarterback hit the portal, and they're like, hey, wait a minute, you signed a contract with us 24 hours ago, not even. That whole thing is fascinating to me. I think the other thing, guys, and Jay, I'm sure you're paying a lot of attention to this, the presidents are starting to make a lot of noise. They're saying, hey, look, we agreed to these rules. Now you guys can't enforce them. What are we going to do here? You're hearing leagues talk about breaking off and just playing, just against their league, making their own rules. I don't think we get to that point. And then the other side of that is like, hey, as people have said, there was no collective bargaining agreement. I think that was Miami's point. The whole where this goes in the next year or two, it feels like we're starting to hit a little bit of a breaking point with the president starting to speak out.
You're kidding, right?
Okay. You think that? Well, you think 5 years from now we're going to be in the same place we are?
Hell no, I don't. I think 5 years from now we're going to be closer to the Super Conference, and they just pick and choose whatever group of five they want to welcome to go get an ass whipping on a Saturday in Columbus, Tuscaloosa, Athens, or Austin. But if anybody thinks the presidents have more power than the football coaches,
No. I'm not. Well, I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just saying we're hearing noise in ways that we've not heard. I mean, surely you follow. I know you follow that.
Legally, you can't enforce a salary cap without anybody from labor's side being at the table.
Yeah.
And look,
Hubert is saying that doesn't matter because you have no antitrust or because you have an antitrust exemption. But I mean, that's not stopping it, right?
Yeah, but for now, because look, what we've seen over the last decade that has changed everything we know about college sports is the willingness for players to go into legal action.
Yeah.
And it's been 50 years since Curt Flood, hell, it's probably been 60 years. Curt Flood with the St. Louis Cardinals changed modern sports free agency.
Yeah.
Suing baseball and the St. Louis Cardinals, challenging their antitrust regulations because he couldn't become a free agent, and he won, and he rightly won. So, look, all the conversations going, we have no precedent other than the other sports precedent, and now that college football is making this much money, saying these are student athletes is crap. I mean, it's especially at the high profile sports schools and high profile programs. Let's try to talk about this in the realistic realm and not what we used to know and not what we romanticize and not what we wish it could go back to, because it's never going back.
Chase, I mean, where do you think this is headed? I mean, I just feel like we can't have the chaos we've got all the time, and you've got sticking points on both sides.
Yeah, you do. I just, you can't have the chaos we've had. I mean, eventually something will happen to change that. Not sure what it is. I don't know if you can completely change it. I think there will always be some level of chaos because some rule's going to change. Something's going to come in to affect that, make it totally different. It's hard to tell. I mean, it's really hard to gauge what they're going to do, how it's going to be fixed. And until I get a sense, it's hard to even know where to go with this.
Yeah. I've got it just an aside. I think that, Jay, you might have read this. You probably haven't. It's not well known, and I don't know how. I think it's the best sports book I've ever read. You know who Marvin Miller is. That would be before Chase's time. He wrote a book. I'm going to drop the name in the chat here in a minute. It's called A Whole Different Ballgame. And it's about how the whole baseball free agency thing came out and the financial model, how it changed. You know, you had owners in Major League Baseball saying free agency is going to be the ruin of the sport. It's going to bankrupt everybody. You know, you look up and the Dodgers just signed Kyle Tucker for 4 years and $240 million last week. Obviously, nobody's going bankrupt.
The Dodgers have 8 players in their 25-man roster who have signed 9-figure contracts.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the reason I bring it up. You can see so many parallels between where baseball was and where college football is going. You can find it on Amazon. It is not well known. I found it one day on a clearance shelf in a bookstore, and I just bought it because it was a couple of bucks. It is literally the best sports book I've ever read. And I think if you like college football, what's going on?
It's in my top 5.
You've read it?
Miller was a former representative of the Players Union in MLB.
Yeah. And it makes you realize how much they've been brainwashed too, by the way, Jay.
Yes. One is Friday Night Lights, and I'll never deviate from that. Even no matter how much Buzz Bissinger dresses up like women and does whatever he does in his private life. 2, Ball 4 by Jim Bunton.
Oh, yes.
3, everything Dan Jenkins has ever written about sports. 4, a different new ball game. and 5 Moneyball.
So I didn't realize you'd read that book. We never had that conversation. Like I have friends that have read the book because I gave it to them or recommended it. You're the only person I think that I've ever met that actually read it.
Well, just because I went to Auburn, I do not appreciate you assuming I don't know how to read, Chris.
No. I know you know how to read. My point was, it's not a very well known book, and I'm surprised I met someone else who actually read it. But it's the best. Literally, it's the best. That and Ball 4 are probably the best 2 sports books I've ever read.
Friday Night Lights is the best ever.
Okay, I've read that one too.
It is great.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, national title game. The spread's not changed. The over-under's not changed since we, I think, did our initial preview on it. Anything change on our thoughts on the game? Chase, I'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I don't think my opinion on the game has changed. That Indiana's going to win the game, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think unless Miami has something figured out on how to make Indiana make mistakes, I just don't see Miami being able to win this game. Can they keep it close? Sure. But I think Indiana in the end will win this one.
Yeah. Jay?
There's a game tonight?
I know. We'll have to put the portal down for a minute to watch football again.
I think Chase said it pretty well. Indiana's just too complete. And I don't – not only do I not trust Carson back in moments like this, what we've seen is I don't know how much Miami trusts Carson back in moments like this. I mean, yes, he completed that great drive, but the Red Sea parted, and Moses in his flowing robes could have scored the game-winning touchdown against Ole Miss. In truth, Miami should have beat Ole Miss by 2 or 3 touchdowns considering the plays that should have been made. But I think Cignetti is going to figure out a way to try to make Carson Beck beat them, and I don't think he can. No matter how many different ways I've looked at this, there is no way to compartmentalize a way to make Indiana one-dimensional.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I just think Indiana is complete. My thing is not Carson Beck's going to go and screw this game up for Miami. He's played pretty well. My thing is I'm watching the guy under the other center. Fernando Mendoza has been unbelievable, guys. Like he's come out and played like an NFL 101 guy. They've got everything. That's the piece you got to have the most. I'm interested to see how it goes. I'm interested to see the crowd. It is in Miami's home stadium. I'm not sure Miami's going to have the most fans there. We're about to find out. Like,
I'll bet you they don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my only question is, like, the Indiana fans have spent a good bit of coin so far on playoff tickets. So, like, how much money do these
this
people?
is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
It is. I think people, go to the credit card or the home equity loan to go there tonight. But I will be interested. It's a very unusual scenario, and I've liked Indiana. Since that Ohio State game, I've liked them before, but just watching them play in the playoffs, they've just been a wrecking crew to everything in their path. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this. I imagine we'll do some more portal stuff because, again, there's another.
Are we doing anything live tonight, Chris?
Probably. I'll check on that. Check the channel. Check your notifications. Subscribe to the channel. Enable your notifications so you know that if we do. I know we had basketball stuff this morning. Going to record some baseball things. By the way, we got 2 baseball head coaches we're going to interview this week. I will not give you names. I'll just say I have seen fans from both schools who are represented in these interviews present in the chat today. So you will have an additional something to look forward to there as we get our baseball stuff out. Of course, basketball nonstop. Max and Blake have got you covered there. And again, we will do some more of this as portal happenings happen or don't happen. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember, enable your notifications, give us a like. And give us a rating where you get us on your audio platforms. That always helps us, too, to grow our other channels. So anyway, for Jay Greeson and Chase Robinson, I'm Chris Lee. God bless you. Thank you for watching Southeastern 16, presented by FanDuel.